Hello guys, hope you're all doing good. So this video we are going to talk about one of the future highlights from especially from 2019.2 onwards, and I'll just quickly walk you through what are the major future upgrades or the features which has been provided by Tableau, which is going to be very useful. So to start with, we will first cover on ask data. As most of you might already know that we have ask data feature, which is basically that once you publish a dashboard to Tableau server, then your users can actually ask questions related to your dashboard. Like if you have a sales dashboard, your users can actually write a query in a simpler words, and then the Tableau will actually give a response in terms of a visualization. So let's get deep into it. So before that, so I'll just tell you what exactly as a overview of an ask data. It's a natural language capability which is similar to how if you know Power BI, you have analyze in Excel option which does the similar task. So it's the same natural language capability which Tableau has integrated. And then so it's basically giving you a provision to ask questions of any published data source. Okay, so to analyze your data in a simple form, it basically lets you ask some of the very frequently used phrases like what is the sales. So you can actually ask questions something like that, and then your the moment you ask the question, the Tableau will automatically run its semantic models and then give you the response for those questionnaires. Now how does it does so let's go to the next page. As you can see on the screen, this is how this UI would look like for anybody who is trying to use ask data. So what you can see basically on the first thing is the data source name over here, and then you will see something called analysis complete. So what Tableau does is whenever you publish any data source to Tableau server, it will perform its detailed analysis on all the dimensions and measures, and then it says whether your analysis is complete or not. If you click on I icon, it will give you a detailed one that on what fields what level of analysis is done. So that's about the analysis. And on the left side you will see all the dimensions and measures. When you hover on any of them, it will actually give you some more useful information that within that dimension what values are available. Example, if I click on property type, what are the most frequent unique values available in the property type. The moment you hover, it will give you that information. And the most important thing is this particular area. This is where you can ask the question, and this is the result is over here bottom, which is basically a visualization. So if you see on the screen currently, the moment the question is asked what is the average daily price by the neighborhood, so it is automatically giving you a view which gives an axis scale, and it will distribute your neighborhood based on that visualization format. And you will also see there is a drop down over here with which if you want to change the visualization type, you can also do that. And similarly, you have an option to clear all, wherein you can erase your question and rewrite a new question. Or if you don't want to do that, you also have an option called save. So say you are doing a self-service analysis, and now you want to save this the ask data result which you have done with others, so you can pretty well save this version with others. And this particular icon will actually transpose your axis, so you can use that. So this is how more or less the screen would look like. And at the bottom, if you see, you have the same option as Tableau desktop, where you can add multiple sheets as you can. So this is at a high level overview on how the screen would look like. Let's go to the next slide. Now how does this work basically? So if you see over here, there are two main concepts. One is data source analysis and the second is query. So let's talk about data source analysis. As I told, the moment you publish a data source to Tableau server, if you see here, it's actually analyzing the data. So what it does basically is it'll create an indices which is in Elasticsearch. Maybe you can think Elasticsearch as a kind of search engine. For now I'll give you a detailed description. So this is a search engine which basically crawl all the values and the kind of information available in each dimensions. Okay, so at a very high level this is what it does. So it will query each and every dimension and find out what is the most frequent values available, what are the unique values available. So it performs such level of analysis. And then on the next screen which you see is query. Basically what it does is it's kind of giving you the moment. If you see, if type furniture sales last year, automatically it will build a query for you which says that are you trying to look for a sum of sales with an order date. So automatically it finds out there is a date field in your data set which is order date, and it says that you are looking for last year, and it is so intelligent enough that it automatically identifies that furniture belongs to the dimension called category. So it will frame a query to you and you can just click on that to see the result. So at a very high level these are the two components. One is data source analysis and the second one is query. Let's go to the next information now. So data source analysis, which I spoke about, which is basically performing the analysis on your data set. What does it do in detail, right? It creates a field profile. It creates each profile for one particular field. And if you see here for product name, it has created one profile and it's saying that what are the most common values available there, and then what is the role. Is it a nominal? So it is going to define you the role on that, and it says it's a column field. And if there is any alias or name provided to the product name over here, the actual column name also will be shown here if you're renaming the column names. Similarly, if you look for order date, it says that within your data set this is the start date and this is the end date available in your data. And for all the numerical measures, I think it is giving you a ordinal dimension. And similarly it has a remote column which is in case if you are renaming that, you can see the actual column names over there. So basically this is called as field profile. If you have 10 different dimensions, it will create 10 different field profiles for indexing purpose. And then the second one is value index. So what is value index? So the previous one which we spoke is a field profile. Now this one is trying to build an index within that field. Example, we have a field called category, and now if you see here, furniture is automatically deducted that it belongs to category. So that is called as value index. So what it does is it builds an index for each profile. What are the values available over there, it belongs to which field. So that kind of intelligent analysis is done by creating value index for each of the field profiles. So if for some of the examples, if you see, the moment I type paper, it automatically recognizes that it belongs to a field called subcategory. So it suggests you that are you trying to filter subcategory to paper. Now let's go to the next information. Now how does it look like when we publish the ask data? So by default it is not available in Tableau server. Now how do you enable the ask data for your end users? So in order to do that, there are some couple of options where you can basically define how to integrate or create a kind of a data set which is very well used for the ask data purpose. The first thing over here is you will see an option called enable for this data source. Please note that if you are publishing your Tableau dashboard with an embedded data source, you will not be able to enable ask data for that. So in order to do that, you have to publish the data source separately, and then if you click on that data set, you will see this option called enable this. When you click on this, only then your user will be able to see the ask data functionality. And the second thing is, we spoke about data source analysis, right? So you have multiple ways where you can define how your data source analysis has to be configured. Example, you have published a data source which is on a weekly basis. Every week your data source gets refreshed, and whenever it gets refreshed, you want the new index to be created because new data will be there, some of the new values which has come. So you have multiple ways to configure that. so we can deep dive into that. For now you can think by default, if it is like automatic, so what it does is automatically it will periodically, whenever users are querying more amount of ask data queries, it will automatically rebuild its index for now. Okay. Now, just a bit of information on how in the backend the ask data is configured. So now in the newer version, whenever we are setting up a Tableau server, so automatically an additional component is getting installed, which is basically your um, Elasticsearch. So as I told, Elasticsearch is kind of a search engine which helps Ask Data to build its query at a fast-paced environment. So what happens is it runs on every host. If you have a multi-node of Tableau server, it will run on every host wherever your data server as a host is configured, it will run on every data server. And now what happens on Elasticsearch is it will run only on the master node, and one of the default instance which by default is configured for the Elasticsearch memory is 256 MB. So this particular 256 MB of memory can be increased to any amount based upon your server configuration, but by default it is going to be 256 MB, which is pretty well when you have a low amount of users who will be using Ask Data. So now let's go to the next slide. This is at a very high level. If someone wants to deep dive into how Elasticsearch works, so maybe I'll just post a link in the description on how the index, and then it calls an API and give you the response for your query. So now, in case if you want to enable ask data for from small organization to a large organization with heavy number of users, on an average, the suggestion by Tableau is to at least have minimum 8 gigs of extra RAM or memory for ask data, so that at least if you see here, it has an eligibility of querying at least 3000 queries per minute. So if you have more number of users, you can pretty well extend your server configuration to have at least 8 gigs of RAM specifically for ask data, and you can configure that for a faster results. So now let's talk about row level security within ask data. How if you have imagine built a data source which has your row level security or user filters configured for some of the fields, how does the ask data handle such kind of data sets? So by default, ask data is not going to analyze any fields or dimensions wherever you have configured the row level security. So that is point number one. And point number two is a data source which requires credentials. Basically, if you have published a data source which has credentials are not embedded, it is not going to analyze such data sets. And similarly, like if you see the calculated fields, right, so with the user references where you have used user functions, it is not going to analyze such data sets. So now let's see the differences between how the ask data UI will look like for a data set which is without row level security. As you can see on the screen, this data set doesn't have any row level security, and by default, if I hover on order priority, you can see all the information over here. Similarly, when we query, we can also see what kind of chairs ordered by Steven in 2014. It is able to give the suggestions within the query model. Now if I see with row level security, now if you hover on the same dataset, now this one is RLS enabled dataset. If I hover on order priority, it says indexing is not supported because RLS is enabled for this particular dataset. Okay. So now what are the best practices for enabling the ask data? Now one of the some of the practices might be some of the developers might have already been following, but first thing is to remove the unnecessary fields, because previously when there was no ask data, it is still fine that because your users will go and just see the dashboard. But now in the ask data, even if you have created multiple calculated fields which are not at all required in your dashboard, but those fields will be visible for ask data users or the data set. So remove all the unnecessary fields. or calculated fields, and give a unique or meaningful names. Whenever we, most of the scenarios what we see is when developer connects to their data sets which is from the database, there will be a lot of special characters or spacing. Always rename those columns with a meaningful name. And so the one of the good option in ask data is you can create a synonym for your field names. Let's say you have a field called profile, or sorry, profit. You can add as many as synonyms for that particular field called profit, so that if users, instead of typing profit, if they say what would be my uh, uh, whatever the synonym for profit, right? What is the growth, or the moment they type growth, if you want users to go for the profit column, you can add growth as your synonym. And avoid alias. So add alias to the field values, right? So some of the field values which are coming directly from database, there would be a spell error, or there could be a short names, like there is a country called India, but in the backend it could be called as IND. So for a better ask data results, you can always add alias for your field values. Okay. And some of the, as I talked about the synonyms, you can add synonyms as well. And then if your data source is slow, create an extract. So always try to use dot hyper, which is the most optimized version for faster dashboard loading and faster querying the Tableau dashboard. So if there is no need of live connection, always go for creating an extract. Okay. So hope this is an informational video, guys. So like and subscribe for more. And there is a new video coming up which is related to Tableau 2019.2 futures as well. And it also talks about with respect to development, what improvements has come, and how it will save your time from the previous version. So what are the features which can save your time while building the Tableau dashboard? Like and subscribe for more. Have a nice day. Thank you.